For this month's lunchtime book chat, we are joined by Frank Tallis, Charlotte Mendelson and Emily Gravett. Welcome to Book Break. Hello and welcome. I'm Alexandra Heminsley and this is Book Break. We're back! It's episode 2 and this month I'm joined in the Book Break snug by some multi-award winning talent. Frank Tallis is a former clinical psychologist and author of such supernatural thrillers as The Voices and the terrifying Sleep Room. Next to him is author of the Man Booker Prize longlisted Almost English, Charlotte Mendelson. And last but not least is a uniquely talented author and illustrator, author of the acclaimed Wolves and Little Mouse's Big Book of Fears, as well as the recently released Bear and Hare Go Fishing, Emily Gravett. Also coming up on today's show, Jeffrey Archer talks us through his writing process and shows us his writer's room. Trust me, it is not your usual writer's garret. Small Talk author Nicola Lathey gives us her top tips for boosting your child's speech and language development, and author Annie Murray will face our quick-fire questions. Welcome, everybody. Now, first up, Frank, you've made the transition, as I mentioned, from clinical psychologist, is that right? I've used the right term, to author. How was that decision? Was it that you did all that study with a view to having the best researched books ever? Or were you busy with that job and thinking, oh, hang on, I'd quite like to see what would happen in my imagination with some of these personality types?
Well, I think I'd always wanted to be a writer, but obviously writing is a very, very fickle profession.
Sure.
And so I wanted to have a regular job and decided to study clinical psychology. But I eventually got to a particular point in life where the old ambition surfaced again, and I decided to write a novel. So whenever I got cancellations and patients didn't turn up in the clinic.
So there was an overlap.
Very much so, yeah, there was an overlap. And so when I got cancellations, I'd take out a laptop and work on a novel, and that's how I started.
And Charlotte, you did a sort of similar poacher turned gamekeeper in that you were in publishing and now you're on the other side as an author. And how was that? Did you were you there busy working on everyone else's work thinking, I think I could have a go at this? Or did a sort of lightning strike of inspiration happen?
No, it was more that I really wanted to be a writer, but it didn't occur to me that I could be a writer.
Yes.
And I was in publishing because I love books and I thought authors were exciting. And really all I can do is read. And then slowly, for various reasons, the desire became so strong that I thought, well, I could just try a little bit. And it coincided with a job where I had a door. And for the first, it was quite a big deal in publishing.
Oh, a door to your office?
I had a door to my, not just a door.
Right.
I owned a door and also a window. It was great. No, a door to my office. So for the first time, and indeed the last time in my entire publishing career, I could close the door. So about 3 lunch breaks a week, I'd close the door and I'd write. And it all went on from there. So now I combine the two. And I also I have a door. I have a front door now.
Yeah,
upgrade.
Got some sneaky writers here this month. But you were longlisted for the Man Booker, and how was that experience? Because had you had that as a publisher? Had anyone you'd published had that, and then you'd had it as an author, or is it a sort of?
No, frustratingly, that hadn't happened. It was a weird thing though, because of my publishing job, I'm obviously completely aware of prizes, and I spend a lot of time saying to authors, they don't mean anything. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. And I wasn't.
It's arbitrary.
Yeah, exactly. And which is true, actually. I do know that. And then my previous book had been shortlisted for the Orange, and that had been totally fantastic. Hadn't been expecting to get anywhere near the Booker ever, because I thought, well, I write books with jokes. Booker, not going to happen. And then when I was on the long list, which was a huge surprise, I suddenly understood why all my authors really do care, because it's all very well going, it doesn't matter, but really once you're on the long list, you start imagining what you're going to spend the money on. It's terrible.
And obviously the long-term
a big door,
accolades,
obviously. Yes.
And Emily, you didn't make quite such a sort of leap from one job to another. No. But what sort of informed you? You know, were you working with animals, or is this pure imagination with you?
I never wanted to be a writer at all. I just sort of, after my daughter was born, I started reading picture books to her, and I've always drawn, and so then I decided I wanted to be an illustrator, really. So I went into an illustration degree, and by the end of my degree, because I was fascinated by the objects of books, I started to write to go with my illustrations, really. So I never intended to actually write.
So you were just providing a story for
my illustrations, really. Yeah.
I see. So we've all kind of taken a bit of a sort of wiggly route to where you all are now. And Frank, you're really using the information that you had from your first career. It's a real kind of practical application with these novels and going forward into your new ones.
Oh, absolutely. In many respects, I still think I'm doing clinical psychology, but doing it in a different domain.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't have written the Lieberman series without, I suppose, my training and clinical experience that was essential for the writing of the character and also for the understanding of psychoanalysis. And also, I mean, it's very important at a much deeper level. So if I'm thinking about a character, let's say in the crime work, a serial killer, of course, serial killers have very extravagant methods that are often very implausible.
Yes.
And so for me, I have to make that plausible by making it sort of clinically authentic. Yeah. So I'll think it through in terms of a case history, in terms of the psychological variables that have actually caused that particular kind of extreme behaviour, and even perhaps think about the biological underpinnings as well. So I use it even in terms of character formation and development.
And is this me being sort of wildly over-imaginative myself, but are there commonalities between the idea of sort of detective work in a novel where there's an actual crime at hand, and then the detective work that psychoanalysis involves as well? You're sort of picking away, trying to work out what's made what happen. Is that just me implying too much?
No, there are huge parallels. I mean, crimes are like symptoms, and a detective's work is
I like that line.
Remember.
and detectives work like psychoanalysts. I mean, one is actually pursuing a criminal, the other is pursuing a repressed memory. But I mean, this wasn't actually lost on Freud. Freud said that one day psychoanalysis might be used to help track down criminals. And he was also a great crime fan.
Was he?
Yeah.
That makes me feel so much better about my massive crime habit.
Me too. I just imagine him with his sofa and a big pile of sort of crumbly old paperbacks. Yeah.
It's funny you should say that, because we know he read Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes and was a great fan because of a memoir of one of his patients, in fact his most famous patient, who's known as the Wolfman. And they were having therapy and stopped off to have a literary discussion, as you do.
Yeah, obviously, I know that the whole time. Yeah.
And the Wolfman remembers Freud speaking very, very highly of Sherlock Holmes, and actually saying exactly what you're saying, that he thought that he would be just reading Dostoevsky and wouldn't be reading something as low as Conan Doyle. But Freud enthused about Sherlock Holmes. And the Wolfman actually reflects on this and says, well, it kind of makes sense, because in a way, the detection of crimes and the detection of criminals is a little bit like what a psychoanalyst does.
I love reading Ruth Rendell, and she writes fantastically dark books about the psychology of people who seem reasonably normal but are loonies.
Yeah.
And I think it is the same thing. It's exactly, and I have realised that at least with her, that's what I do in my books as well. I want to know about how people are much stranger under the surface than they seem, and she does that. So I suppose there is that. Now we all feel much better about our scanty noir.
Thanks, team. Now, Frank, tell us a little bit about the new ones. I'm reluctant. I'm only doing this because it's my job, because the sleep room terrified me so much I can barely bring myself to talk about it. But could you tell us a little about it? And the new one, which is The Voices, which is coming in May.
Okay, well, they're both psychological ghost stories.
There's the standalone ones now.
Yes, that's right. They're not part of a series.
Yeah.
And
we've left Lieberman, and we've changed your name as well.
Oh, we have indeed. I'm now
Tallis.
Fr Tallis because I thought it was quite important to draw a line between the crime writing and the supernatural fiction. And The Sleep Room is a psychological ghost story set in Suffolk in the 1950s.
Very far into Suffolk.
Creepy.
Yes. And it's, the major sort of theme of it is in fact narcosis or deep sleep therapy. And the senior psychiatrist in the novel is based on a real psychiatrist called William Sargent, who was perhaps one of the most influential.
Terrifying.
He was it indeed. In reality, very much a larger than life figure, and a very sort of overpowering personality. And he had a real sleep room was actually the notorious Ward 5 of the Royal Waterloo Hospital. So if you go to the IMAX or the South Bank Centre,
which I now never will again.
and if you look across,
Broken.
you look across the road, you'll see a lovely red brick Victorian building, and that's where Ward 5 was. And he treated mostly women patients there, which was rather sinister. And it wasn't closed until 1972, because he was such a powerful figure within psychiatry. I suppose he just wasn't challenged, and indeed some patients actually died.
And can we have a little teaser about The Voices, please, while we're here?
Okay, The Voices is a sort of 1970s sort of literary novel, but with ghosts. And the ghosts actually make themselves known through electric devices, and principally a baby monitor.
I think baby monitors are spooky anyway.
They are the voices, are they?
Well, I think most parents will be familiar with the feelings of feeling very overprotective about a small child, and will have also experienced monitoring very closely the sounds coming out of a baby monitor. I know I certainly did. I mean, in a way, I hardly sort of slept.
Yeah, well, you're tired anyway, you're listening for
just
things.
Listening all of the time.
Oh, my goodness.
And I can remember sort of just frightening myself, I don't know, being woken up by sort of a snuffle or a small cough at about 2 or 3 in the morning, and just lying in bed thinking, wouldn't it be really frightening if I heard a voice coming through the baby monitor right now, a man's voice? Or wouldn't it be frightening if, my son was making noises that were like a kind of conversation, but there was nobody there? And so this forms a kind of like central
I'm terribly excited about this book, but I'm afraid I'm going to talk to Charlotte now before I have a nervous breakdown. Charlotte, your novel, Almost English, has been described as late Shakespeare meets Modern Family, which is kind of a dream quote to give an author.
It really is.
Could you have imagined that was sort of going to end up where someone was seeing this book when you conceived it? Like, did you have a pitch document that you thought about when you talked to your editor and you wanted to sort of make it something like that? Or did you just have one character that sort of exploded out into this book?
No, it was a really thrilling quote, because I want the jokes and I want the darkness, and I think of it as a funny book about misery. I didn't know how to write it because I wanted to write about people who were unhappy, but so it wasn't a drag to read.
Yeah.
So, and I decided, and it only started working for me when I did start finding ways to laugh at them, I suppose. Brutal as that sounds. So, I want to write about very, very strong feelings, which I think, obviously everyone has, but in a way that is at
bearable.
Least fun. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I write about embarrassment a lot, because I'm easily embarrassed, and almost that's my revenge on the world that embarrasses me, as I put these poor characters into these terribly embarrassing situations. So that's a way of almost feeling their horror, but not actually having to do anything about it.
And where do these characters come from? It's a novel that's set very much kind of in a family and to do with the relationships of a family and a sort of boarding school, which is also another sort of second family that gets created. And, are you wildly imaginative like Emily, or are you sort of a liability at family dinners? Tell the truth now, we've got Frank. We're sharing and workshopping.
Sharing with the group. I did go to a boarding school briefly, which I absolutely hated.
The word briefly is quite telling.
Briefly. And that family does have some links to my own, because it's called Almost English because it's about not feeling like you fit in.
Yeah.
And which I think most readers and probably all writers have felt for most of their lives, when they were, you're never going to be quite normal if when you're 12 you're lying on the floor reading a novel rather than actually playing. So it's about that feeling of foreignness, which I identify with, and about, being in a situation, a family, a school, whatever, and just thinking, I have nothing to do with these people. I don't know what's going on. We're different species.
Yeah. And now that you've kind of put it out there, I imagine your readers think, well, isn't it great that she's over that?
I don't think any of my readers think that. I think they think that poor family. No, I think writing is therapy, and one of the best things about writing Almost English was it just made me continually so grateful that I'm not a teenager anymore.
Yeah.
It's just great being a grown-up, relatively. So, yes.
And are you able to tell us anything about your next project?
No.
No?
No. Mainly because I just don't know what the hell it is at the moment. I've got all sorts of stuff chuntering around.
Do you have lots of sort of notebooks with kind of Monday? And then
I do. I don't draw little pictures, though not quite on the level of Emily's. No rabbits. I draw timetables that then constantly rubbed out. It's all a bit sort of scruffy, rough book from school.
I think to help you, we will move on now. Before we talk Hares and Bears with Emily, it's time for a quick trip to sunny Majorca. The fourth novel in his Clifton Chronicles series, Be Careful What You Wish For, is out next week, and it will be his 19th novel in a writing career spanning nearly 40 years. This month's writing room, or should I say house, belongs to Geoffrey Archer.
I don't play the violin. I'm not a ballet dancer. I write books. And every day the ideas come, morning, noon and night. It is luck. Got to work hard. There's no shortcut in doing anything that's successful. Authors who say, well, there's the book, you do everything, are foolish. I get deeply involved. I like to know the texture of the paper. I like to see the print. I like to see the cover. I saw 12 covers before we chose the current one. I'm up at 6 every morning. I work from 6 till 8, 10 to 12, 2 till 4, 6 to 8. Bed around 10 o'clock at night, up again at 5, ready to work at 6. And I love it. I think I would give up if I didn't love it. I think I'd do something else. I come over here on December the 27th to Majorca, and I work for 50 days, every word handwritten, and I will do that 3 times. In other words, every page is written 3 times. And then I will leave here on about February the 10th, February the 11th, and I'll have a handwritten book of about 120,000 words. And I give that to my secretary, and she types it. I'll take a 3 to 4 week break, and then I come back here, and it's given to me triple spaced, and I start working with a pencil. The draft that will be on the bookshelves on March the 13th of Be Careful What You Wish For will be about the 14th draft, and will have taken about 1,000 hours. So it's very hard work.
Now, Geoffrey will be doing a Q&A with Pan Macmillan on the 17th of March. So if you have any questions for him, please send them in as soon as possible using the Ask Geoffrey hashtag. So, guys, we've seen Geoffrey's regime. Do you have any specific writing zones or routines? There was quite a lot of hour divisions there. Are you quite so strict, Charlotte?
I wish I were. If I was, maybe I'd written 19 books. It could hardly be less like that, actually. It's more sort of haul myself up to my desk with an enormous pile of provisions, very quickly decide I have to go downstairs again and get more.
But provisions is perhaps more like some biscuits and an iPod rather than...
I'm slightly ritualistic about... very dark chocolate and very sour apricots, which I can't really get anymore, but dried sour apricots, essential. But the whole 2-hour chunks thing doesn't really happen.
No, you have to lose
My secretary,
yourself.
I still haven't met her. I'm waiting for her to appear. Where is she or he? And in many other respects, I'm not like him. So, which explains
Julie
sadly a lot. Yeah.
Frank, do you have a zone in your home for specific to writing, or are you sort of, just my imagination has grabbed me kind of a...
No, I have like a small office in which I write, and I write for 5 hours a day on sort of weekdays and have the weekends off. It's quite interesting.
And are you able to go, I'm going to my office now and close the door and write for 5 hours and come out, or is there a big procrastination, psyching up?
No, I just go
the
to
muse is punctual.
It's very punctual, so I just sort of go into the office, work for 3 hours, have lunch.
I think you're a little bit more psychologically tidy than the rest of us in this room today. Now, Emily, I've heard that you have a sort of specific area. I mean, presumably you need more kit than just a laptop. So
I have lots of paper.
Yeah. Ooh, where is your zone where your creations come to life?
It's my old bedroom. So I used to work in the attic of my house, which was horrible because it was like a tent. So there's no wall space for bookshelves or sticking drawings up. And I used to have a big beanbag in there, so I used to just, because it was quite oppressive. I didn't think there was enough air circulating or something, so I used to get sleepy and then just go to my beanbag for 3 of those 5 hours.
And come out like this.
Yeah. Then I had a loft conversion, so I moved upstairs where the bedroom's nice, and now I have the front bedroom, which is a lovely room, really. I can almost see the sea if I lean out. But 5 hours is also pushing it. I'm definitely in there for more than 5 hours.
Yes, that's the thing. That's what I was thinking.
I just might be doing a little bit of internet shopping.
Yeah.
Or
sleeping on the beanbag.
No, I don't have the beanbag. I've got rid of the beanbag.
Internet shopping, it's looking at colours and shapes and...
It's life inspiration.
It's research.
Exactly. Which leads me to my next question. Where do these characters come from? Because you deal with animals, not sort of terrifying baby monitors or people.
No, they are people though, aren't they? They're just characters.
Right.
So I see them as, that's the sensitive one, or this is the one that's going to lose its temper quickly. And the animal is just a vehicle to show that to the child.
And how do you know what children will respond to? Is it you just you were a child once, instinct, fingers crossed?
Yeah, and what I would respond to, because actually for a picture book isn't aimed solely at children, it's aimed at the families.
Yeah,
so
I suppose
I think, and children are just small human beings. They're not going to respond completely differently to something. So actually I think I just make things for people. I don't really think so much about this is for a child. Obviously I know that I cannot, I'm not going to have a talking baby monitor in any of my books soon. And I'm not going to put sex and drugs in them, but
Oh, go on. You could.
But I could. It's a picture book.
Oh, yes,
it's a picture book.
Guys,
of adult-only picture books.
Yeah. They don't sell apparently picture books for adults. No.
Right. Publication day was only last week. Yes. And do you have sort of rituals for pub date? Do you, champagne at breakfast, or I'm just walking down the street, I seem to be near my local bookshop and moving the books to the front of the shop?
I try and ignore it, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I try and ignore it, because I didn't even know when publication day for that book was. So.
And is that because you don't want to be nervous thinking, are there people out there reading it? Or is it because you're already in the zone of the next book?
It's a bit of both, really. I don't want to be nervous about, whether it's doing okay. I try not to monitor. Once they've gone, really. As soon as I hand it in, I think that book's gone. And, I'll go and promote it, but then I'm moving on to the next one.
And do you guys have particular rituals? Anybody? Pub date?
It's always a bit nerve-wracking and strange. It's almost like one puts in so much work, but I do think novelists are the worst people in the world to be novelists.
Yes.
Because, they're very oversensitive and touchy about criticism, and then they're going, love me! But also, it's obviously terrifying. The reviews, will you get reviews? All of that is scary. But no champagne.
Okay. Still to come on the show, Annie Murray will face our quick-fire question test. We'll hear more from our guests in the studio, but first, if you would like to know more about developing your child's language skills, then please check out these tips from the author of Small Talk.
I'm a big advocate for books that have a repetitive line within them, like Emily Gravett's Monkey and Me, and there's so many reasons why this is good. Firstly, by reading a story that has a repetitive line in it over and over again, a child will quickly learn that that particular word or sentence relates to that particular picture, and therefore they'll begin to understand what those words mean.
Oh, look! Monkey and me.
Of course, a child needs to learn to understand words before they will begin to use words to request or comment about something. In Small Talk, we say that a child needs to hear a word more than 500 times within its context before a child will start to use that word functionally. To ensure that a child is relating a word to a picture, I sometimes take the little one's finger and I point to the picture as we go through the story. The second reason why books with repetitive lines are so beneficial to encourage talking is that once the repetitive line has become familiar to a child, I often leave a gap so that the child can fill the last word of the sentence in, like monkey and then later I'll leave a gap so that the child can fill in the whole phrase.
We went to see some
fish and penguins.
Fish and penguins all walking in a line.
Monkey and me. Monkey and me, we went to see some kangaroos.
Woohoo!
And this helps to expand the child's vocabulary and also encourages a child to use new grammatical structures like tenses or pronouns that they haven't used before within their sentences.
Monkey and me, we went to see some monkeys.
Monkeys! Cheeky monkeys! Look!
He's holding on to the tail.
He's holding on to his tail.
Did you notice how I let Minnie turn the pages in the book so that she could dictate the pace of the book, and that helps to keep her focused on the book. And also I tried to relate some of the pictures to her own life so that the book has a meaningful context. Lastly, stories of ever-increasing length help a child to expand their ability to concentrate and stay focused for longer, and this enables children to have structure and confidence so that they'll be able to retell their own stories about things that have happened within their own lives. Above all, reading a story every day provides you with the perfect opportunity to sit down and snuggle up and share a special moment with your little one.
And for more tips from the Small Talk authors, you can visit their website. Emily, did you have specific books that you used to sort of encourage? You have a daughter,
I have a daughter, yeah.
To kind of get her reading when she was younger, because she's 16 now, isn't she?
Yeah, but I don't think she ever needed encouraging to read because she just liked books basically.
Yeah.
So, you know, we would just spend hours together reading anyway. So I never set out for it to be, you're doing this to get to the point where you're reading.
And now we read.
And now we read. This is this word. We were just having fun together. So I think most people, that's how they encourage their children to read. I don't think they're setting out as an educational process.
And Frank, did you have kind of classics you read? You have children, and did you have favourites you wanted to read them and ones they wanted to read, or were you kind of on the same track there?
No, I think we were on the same track, and really, once again, I didn't really need to do that much encouragement. I mean,
what were family favourites?
The Tiger Who Came to Tea, which I think is an absolutely extraordinary book.
Yeah.
I think the tiger is a kind of morally ambiguous character.
Oh, yes.
That's brilliant.
I mean,
A huge orange creature comes into our house and drinks all Daddy's beer.
Yeah, it's very, very Freudian.
It's terrifying.
As is Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah.
Maurice Sendak. I mean, that's very psychoanalytic as well.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Where the Wild Things Are is all about, you know, a child coming to terms with sort of infantile rage.
Yeah. And Charlotte, well, share with the group, what were your favourites?
Oh, well, obviously Jane Eyre. No, I didn't ever
I will
have
blind the man to make him love me.
Sort of true. I didn't ever get into the whole Enid Blyton thing. I
Right.
was so hungry for books. Actually, that would have been great because then I could have had, hundreds of books there. There were all sorts of books like, for example, I loved the Willard Price Adventures, Safari Adventure, Guerrilla Adventure. But I have found that it's counterproductive, certainly with my children. The more passionately I want them to read and love a particular book, the less likely they are to show any interest at all.
Yeah, that's such is the nature of encouraging children.
Of other people, damn it.
Now then, this month Annie Murray, author of Birmingham Rose and the upcoming The Women of Lilac Street, hits us with her favourite books in our Quickfire Questions Challenge.
I think it's got to be Jane Eyre. The first adult book I ever read, I think. In the garden, in the sun. Definitely sun. And mine's got to be bookbreak. I'm reading a book at the moment that's not published, actually, by James McManus. And it's called Sleep in Peace Tonight, and it will make a really good film. Lots of international fiction. I love books about other countries and what it's like to be there. So anything from around the world. I'm afraid it was Enid Blyton, which wasn't supposed to be a good thing, but I loved adventure stories. I think just all of them. I love Dickens. I love all the people and large canvas. Brilliant. Andrei Makin is a Russian author. There's just so many, I'm sorry, I can't choose. What skills does the ideal host or hostess have? Welcoming, fun, smiling, good food, definitely good food.
And thank you to Annie there. So the quickfire questions seem quite intimidating. They are quite fast. Guys, favourite place to read? Frank, do you have a reading sofa, or do you only like to read when you're travelling or holidays or?
In bed.
Oh, bed, I suppose, yeah. That'll do. Charlotte?
In the bath.
Ooh.
With an orange. Somehow the two.
And do you read hardcover?
No, hardcovers are difficult. I always drop everything in the bath, so everything's a bit crinkly.
So a paperback that
preferably a paperback that, it doesn't matter if it ends up looking like an accordion.
Yeah, I see. And Emily?
Bed for me as well.
Oh. I do
bourgeois,
most of my reading in transit. I like the feeling of progress and the narrative progressing, and you get somewhere and you've got somewhere else in your head. Now then, we are launching our own literary version of The Voice. Each month we'd like to give unpublished authors the chance to pitch their latest work in 20 seconds by sending in a short video of themselves, and we'll ask our guest authors to give their thoughts, and they choose their favourite on the show. All you need to do is contact us via email on the box on your screen, or via Twitter at @PanMacmillan, or the hashtag bookbreak, and tell us your name and a little bit about your unpublished novel. Leave us contact details and we'll be in touch if we'd like you to feature on the show. But for now, I'm afraid we are out of time. My thanks to Frank Tallis, Charlotte Mendelson and Emily Gravett. If you want to get in touch with the programme in the future, you can contact us on Twitter with any book-related questions. If you want to find out about any of the books that Pan Macmillan publish, you can go to their website, which is panmacmillan.com. And if you want to rewatch any part of the show on an on-demand version, it will be available shortly. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are back next month. See you then. Goodbye.